Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning. We start our Webex meeting with Al-Fatihah. And our today's topic is about expert opinion and Delphi techniques. I already upload the notes for this lecture in your WhatsApp group. So after this, you can look at this lecture note. Now I'm sharing that lecture note. Expert opinion and Delphi techniques. This is another technology forecasting techniques. Sometimes it's used as a single techniques, especially when data are limited, and at another time it used as combined with monitoring. So it can be a good techniques to combine with mathematical method as well, as we learned last week about regressions and extrapolated trend extrapolation based on mathematical model and also graph, and basically it needs lots of previous data to compute the linear regression or trend extrapolation. In a situation where lack of data, so we can use expert opinion and also Delphi techniques. Okay, our lecture today should cover the introduction of expert opinion, selecting experts, selecting the techniques, some criteria to consider for selecting the technique, and also techniques or methods for gathering expert opinion. There are several techniques under these techniques, so we can choose of these techniques. Expert opinion is about having the opinion of experts in a particular area. So we gather the opinions, obtain the opinion, and analyze to support the decision making, especially in technological forecasting. This is expert opinion. Assumption for expert opinion, some individuals know significantly more about parts of the world than others. Thus, their forecast will be substantially better. So that's the main assumption of expert opinion, that somebody know better. So we have to search, obtain the information from this specialist to get information and then to forecast the future. If multiplex expert, meaning that we have many more than one expert, group knowledge will be superior. According to this idea, more individuals or more expert will provide a better idea or superior knowledge compared to individual expert. So in this expert opinion, there are, we call it an individual and also group approach of expert opinion. The strength of expert opinion, expert forecast can tap high quality models internalized by expert who cannot or will not make them explicit. So we have to obtain the knowledge or the information and then make them explicit. We have to gauge, to question, and to analyze the info, so it's will be relevant or related and significant to support our decision making in future forecasting. However, expert opinion also have several weaknesses. The first one, difficult to identify experts. This is the problem when you want to use expert opinion techniques. It's not easy actually to choose and to first to identify and to select uh, experts. And if we uh, communicate or contact them, sometimes they reject to participate in the process of expert opinion. That's the situation. Yeah. Uh, Sometimes we choose, we call it purposive sampling. We choose somebody but have no reply or rejected. That's another problem of having expert opinion. Uh, so in many cases of expert opinion, uh, when selecting expert, we use voluntarily. Voluntarily meaning that we choose expert and then they themselves willing to participate in the process of expert. Number two, another weakness of expert opinion, their forecasts are often wrong. Yeah, sometimes opinions of expert also get wrong, and it's will effect of our forecasting, whether overestimation or underestimation, misleading, and so on. Yeah? Due to wrong forecast, wrong opinion by expert. Another weakness, question posed are often ambiguous or unclear to the expert. We have the question, but it's not clear to the expert. So different interpretation also can cause different understanding and also this different feedback and explanation, opinion as well. And this will cause misleading opinion to a specific and ambiguous or unclear uh, problem or question. Another weakness of expert opinions, interaction among experts cause extraneous factors. Extraneous factors is something irrelevant or unrelated factors when we, for example, include many experts in our process of expert opinion. Sometimes it's also include extraneous factors, irrelevant and unrelated uh, factors or external factors or uncontrollable factors which beyond our control. Uh, or sometimes it's unnecessary variables also includes. This is when we include external experts or people outside of the company or the firm or people who not really understand uh, the topic of discussion or what we are doing or the bottleneck of our problems. So it will sometimes include extraneous factors. Uh, the benefits or uses of expert opinion to forecast when identifiable expert in area exists and where data are lacking and modeling is difficult or impossible. Normally, as we did last week, last week lecture, modeling or mathematical model is based on previous data or available of data. And in many cases, when we want to focus in the future, for example, for the startup, we even don't have the data. So we have to search, maybe by monitoring, as we did at the beginning of the lecture, lecture number 4, about monitoring. And yeah, we use outside data to forecast. And some of this data is not enough. So we are lacking of, we call it credible data to make good forecast. So in this case, if there are experts in the areas, we have to refer to the expert opinions. So this is the benefit of expert opinion. When data are lacking and modeling is difficult, mathematical model for calculation or to compute um, mathematical model is difficult due to the availability of data, not enough data and so on. Since we are at the startup of the business, and then experts are available in the area, so we better to use this expert opinion, refer to the expert opinion for future forecasting. Um, okay, there's a difference between facts and opinion. Facts is existing facts, info or knowledge, Bible, uh, at present time or in the previous time, as in the past. So we can use that based on fact, forecast the future. Uh, Opinion, uh, mainly future facts, such as what's going to happen. That's opinion. we also call intuitive or normative or value judgment based on intuitive or value judgment of uh, individuals, expert, uh, we take as opinions, and then we predict the future. How to select expert or some character criteria to consider in selecting experts. Okay. Um, First one, we have to consider individuals within the firms first. So first, to consider people in the firm first, since they are expert in the areas in which the technology will be used and the decision dimensions. Internal peoples, normally they know better the bottleneck or the problems uh, in details and what to solve actually. And also sometimes they know we call it the initial or the critical uh, information required for the forecasting. Before we ask to the external expert, we should gather, maybe as we should delegate a task force or a group of uh, teams of internal people to identify and to list the problems or the bottlenecks, and also in detail. Why we have to understand the situation or the dimensions or the contextuals and what it's relate and so on. As we did for exercise of retrospective study, historical retrospective study of the first transatlantic cable. Uh, the technical problems may come from materials, may come from machines, may come from methods or the process, and also the manning, the manpower, and also from the money matters. 5 M's. I did mention last week lecture in last week lecture. Uh, Methods, machine, uh, manning, money, methods, machine, money, materials, and machine. Method, machine, materials, money, and also manning. So this is the dimensional or contextuals of the problem. More or less like you are forming your proposal for your PSM. We call it the dimensionals or contextuals of the problem. So you should uh, identify and gauge the problem clearly, which it can be related to material problem, it can be related to human resource or manning, material problem, methods such as process problem, or it can also the money matters as well. So you have to list down all and then to set the limit. Example like bottlenecks in a production process. Maybe it's due to old machine, or maybe it's due to poor operator, which cause the bottlenecks, or maybe a combination of all those costs. So you have to identify and have the dimension or contextual study, we call it work study. All this relate to what and who. Maybe we can engineer can easily, or we can replace the machine, or we can have autonomous, meaning that robotic, such as in paint spraying process, or we call it paint spraying shop or station. So we make a suggestion to replace robotic spray machine, placing the using the man. But it also have another effect. That's why we have to include internal people, people from HR, people from finance. We call it simultaneous engineering. People from engineering as well, and people from sourcing materials. Whether if we want to change the machine, which material appropriate for that machine, and so on. So this we call it mapping of information related or contextual or dimensions. We have to maps. Yeah, can use mapping strategy, uh, having the critical problem or bottlenecks at the middle, and a few other dimension of contextual or networking. We can use networking diagram uh, to map the related or relevance, connected decision making. If we change something or we use something, then it will have effect, or it will relate or relevant to others as well. Cause and effect study of others. So mapping info need to be conducted. So we need to involve internal people, sometimes called simultaneous engineering. And in many cases, normally uh, representative from finance have the final say. Yeah? Such as we want to acquire new technology, or we want to license new technology. Uh, the final say from the finance department. Oh, they say we have limited budget, so we have a good idea, so we have the that limitation. That's an example. So we have to have map all the considerations. Okay, uh, mapping including who will implement and maintain the new technology, what tasks will be used, what department or activities will be influenced by the results of application, where it can be applied in current model, in new product, or we call it new NPD, new product development, or new models, so on. So application also, yeah? We have to map the application. What resources are available? That's that of the sourcing, another uh, dimension that we have to study. Potential costs and benefits might be expected, which is normally uh, concerned with the uh, financial department or representative from the financial department. Costs and benefits, and also expected return. As I told about the case of transatlantic cables, more than 20 years times. So any investors frustrated of the project, and so they have to change to identify new funding or new investors to fund the project. Because normally the financing of a project within 1, 2, or 3 years times. And after 1 year, they want to. We have the accounts, and normally these accounts annually they will evaluate or assess the account annually of the expenses and also the return, the cost, and so on. Other necessary information, including projection of improvements, how much, what extent of the improvements, in what aspect of improvements. Uh, so and the effects of the improvement as well. This is dimension that have to be included in the map for the as the initial or preparation before asking external experts. So we have to collect the data, what informations, including projection of improvements, expected improvement that will occur if we change something. Potential application, as I did mention just now, current and also future application, maybe in other application as well, in other models and other product as well, and changes in productivity. Having, for example, new machine or new uh, purchase in transatlantic cable case, uh, machine for rolling the cables. It's a specific machine required to roll the cable. And since the cable is not ordinary cable or land use, but it's firstly to use under the sea. And the distance was 1,600 from island to Newfoundland. So they need a special machine to roll, and this machine must fit to the uh, ship that they want to transport cable. And uh, that the applications of the machines, and also productivity in terms of effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness, it will not break down when they round the, that's example, the cable, not the machine will lay down and effectively lay down the cable. It's not break down the cable or tear up the cable. And also, of course, the cable is making for 1,600 nautical miles very long cable and very heavy. Now also consider the machine load and also the carriage or the carrier or ship to carry that machine and cable. And also productivity in terms of time as well, time study, and also to consider wind and the turbulence of waves in the sea. That's all the technical problem and solutions to project or to predict. That's from the case of transatlantic cable. Next, um, external expert, uh, which can include vendors or suppliers. Vendors is those who work with us, supply parts and components. In many cases, they know better in a specific area of technology or the parts and components. They know in detail the suppliers of their parts for the components and so on. For example, in electrical and electronic manufacturing, they have vendors for supplying PCB, printed circuit boards. Normally, we already have a complete uh, insertion, or we call it auto insertions, supplied by vendors. We just assemble it. So vendors know better of that PCB and parts and also components for that PCB, and also techniques or methods of autonomous, or we call it using robotic on auto insertions. So they know the techniques better than us. So we can consult them. For example, if we are um, uh, producing a new model, we want to have a smaller size. So the PCB have to be smaller. So we have to get external expert here, such as from vendors who have information consult. Uh, Beside vendors or suppliers, technology developers also, if you want to include new technology, for example, in our new PCB, we want to improve performance, so we want to change one technology or a few sub technology or technology. So we have to contact or consult technology developers in that particular area. If it's electronic, then we have to communicate, contact electronic technology developers. It's a chemical combustion, so on. So we have to communicate, contact chemical technology developers. And also establish users. We can also get some opinions from established users or potential buyers of new models or NPD, new product development that we are intense and we want to focus, so we can get opinion from established users and also the market segments, potential buyers as well. because they are good sources for factual information. They are knowledgeable about the direction of their company's product R&D, industry directions, and new product introduction and also timing. Uh, Technology developers, normally they know the industry direction. Uh, which technology going to obsolete? For example, like now we have a better new processor. So uh, we have Core i7 and uh, for example, we want to include in our system a few more software, a new software. Some of them may not compatible with the older processor or I, for example, uh, which some software require a better processor for i7. So uh, this kind of information we can get from the supplier, from the vendor, from technology developer, because they know what's happening in the industry. They got the information, what software or what system. Sometimes you want to develop in-house system, a new in-house system, or to buy a new system in our networking to contact our or to have a computer system, integrated computer system, which directly connect or have networking with several departments in our firms, in logistic, in production, in receiving, in finished process good, and also in sourcing, purchasing, and so on. So we want to integrate all these departments by a system, and we want to develop in house or we want to acquire site system. So we can get expert opinion from technology developers because they are in the industry, so they know what is appropriate for our business or system. And also timing. For example, the emergence of new technology. Maybe we don't have that information, but vendors or developer they know, oh, soon it's going to come this week. For example, we are in April now, maybe in June. So just wait 2 months. There will be a new system or new process, new technology or new product introduced or emerged in the market. Or more, uh, we call it technology enabler, to solve specific problem. So, so we have to get opinion from external. Uh, we should also consider peer group. Peer group is those in government or universities, or we call it think tank, or in industry as well. For example, in Malaysian industry, we have FMM, Federation of Malaysian Manufacturer. They have a board of manufacturer. Yeah. So they also have experience in certain area, so we can get, especially in the implementation stage, or due to legislations. when we want to implement is deal with legislative. So we need to deal this peer group, we call it, common universities, and also to have further contact. uh, Normally we can have expert. One maybe we have one contact from university, and then from this contact we can have a specialized contact. For example, uh, we have RMC and Research Management Center, and also ICC in UTM, Innovation Commercialization Center, as a contact center. So we communicate with them and ask specific area, or for example, we want to know in detail, we want to get specific advice from a specific area of expert. So they will refer that to that particular expert. From the peer groups, as RMC or ICC, they will ask us or direct us to, for example, bio. We have bio uh, bio innovation center, yeah? And we have another one for agro innovation center in yeah, Bangkok. There's UTM center as well. We place many experts in that Bangkok center for agriculture, innovation and invention. We have IBD Institute, Bio Development, under standalone institutes. We call it Research Institute or Higher Research Institute in UTM. That's a peer group. We can get more information. We can contact, for example, MOSTE, Ministry of Trade, if you want to have get international information in a specific. We can get information from expert in MOSTE, Ministry of National Trade, um, and export to gosh more information. So that the function of peer group or external opinion and context. Uh, Beside that, we can also consider network search. We get one point and then we can have more context by network search, such as professional organization in many areas. Even lawyer, they have law association. Engineer, they have engineer of Malaysia, engineers of Malaysia. So we can contact this association, get better expert to communicate better, or to communicate with expert in a specialized area. Also journals, we have so many types of journals, so we have to search a journal in specific area, and also periodicals. Periodicals is publication in specific area. Yeah? Published by universities. In UTM, we have a few publication in HR, human resource, in engineering, in uh, in architecture as well. They always have periodicals, annually, quarterly uh, publication. So we can refer to the latest or related area of search. Uh, Types of expert. There are three types of expert that we can consider in our expert opinions techniques. The first one, generalist, and number two, specialist, and third, potential or likely future positions persons, uh, which make it possible for them to affect technology, uh, including politicians, especially in implementation of we want to implement our new product or technology or law association as well. So this person who's present or likely future position, maybe they are not now, but in the future. Yeah. Their position make it possible for them to affect the technology. So we have to include also these persons, present or likely future positions that will affect the technology or implementation of the technology of the product. Generalist, as an example of generalist, like uh, more or less like general in the war. Normally, general he know the strategies, yeah? When to use the armor, when to use the artillery, yeah? When to use uh, the air force and so on. And how many that the we call it general of the war. And also in technological change, we should consider generalists, those who know the strategies or the strategic information, including the money matters as well. And normally, those who are in the strategic position, such as we call general manager, yeah? In firm or in company, general manager, because he know in many area, in production, in sourcing, in money makers. Normally, general manager come from finance departments. You have to know that in many companies in Malaysia, the GM, general manager, or the chairman come from the financial department, or they are also the chief of the financial divisions. More or less like Malaysia, we have several times we have prime minister acting as well as the financial minister. We have Najib as the prime minister and acting as the financial minister as well. He controlled the whole minister, and also he controlled the most important points of the country, the financial matters. So he became the, we call it generalist. Yeah? Or in music, we can see composer. Composer, he know most everything. He is the generalist. He know the lyric. He know the, what we call it, the tune, the song, the music as well, and the sound or the music produced by each of the instruments. that generalist, that we call it composer in music, not as specialists. Uh, as in war, we call it air forcer or artillery, considered as specialists in that particular area. And in music, pianists, yeah, those who play or piano, or those who play the drum. Yeah? The person play the drum, he know better, or he know the specific area of playing the drum. Uh, but to make the music harmonize, uh, it has to be composed by the composer. So that's the function of generalist or strategist, which know overall the problem and other matters as well, internal and externals. Especially those who are special in specific area. For example, if you want to change from uh, manual spraying of paint, previously or now we are using, but the productivity is low, and also the quality is low. So we want to change to new technology or new process by using robotic of spraying shop. So we should consult a specialist of that particular robotic. Yes, they have a deep knowledge of specific fields. Selecting the techniques. Okay, next we go to how to select and factors to consider when we want to select. First, the processes of selection. We talk or interact with the expert and get feedback. One-way communication, get feedback. And in other um, technique as well, we provide back the feedback and get another feedback. We call it round. Yeah, one round or multiple round. One round we just get one feedback or one way communication. Yeah? Uh, and there also multiple round, or we get more feedbacks, multiple feedback as well. And estimate or make decision based on opinion. So we have to estimate the estimation based on or make decision based on the opinion, or based on the feedback. Factors to consider in choosing a technique. The first one, logistic, including resources, largely determine the method. Resources including the money, uh, fund for licensing, for acquiring the technology, licensing the technology. So we have to consider this is logistic, and also for the implementation or the application, the space. This is logistic as well. The transportation, more or less like what we did in the quiz of the uh, laying down the transatlantic cable. So all this logistic we have to taken into consideration about the materials, about the methods, about the machines, about the men, and also the money. Yeah. That resources, 5 M's in engineering, which huge It's like a fingertip. You should know on the tip of your finger this 5 point: materials, methods, machine, man, and money. For example, you want to substitute or replace that manual spraying into automatic spraying. So what's happened to the manning, the people that you have previously? You have to take into consideration as well. Number two, feedback. Yeah, minimizing delay between successive feedbacks. If you are using multiple feedbacks, so the further feedbacks we have to minimize the delay. We should set the durations or set the uh, targets for completing process of uh, collecting the data, collecting the opinions, and get the feedback. Because in multiple feedbacks, you have to first you have to get feedback, and then you have to uh, deliver the feedback again to all the participants to share with them, and then to get another feedback. That's another round, and sometimes up to 4 rounds in Delphi techniques. Normally, we use 4 rounds to have a better feedbacks. But we have to uh, set the durations to minimize the delay or lagging or idle time within the transfer of the feedback. Number three, communication medium. What medium? Yeah, among other things, to make it more efficient, and also to make it confidential among the participants in Delphi, especially. So the mediums, we have to decide what medium to use to access the experts, resources, and time as well. Yeah? Uh, can be by phone, by online, or face to face, and so on. The medium of communication. Sample size, how many? That's another important question. More or less like you are doing your proposal for PSM, you have to consider, yeah, whether it's quantitative or qualitative technique. You have to consider qualitative, such as survey, uh, a conventional survey, or Delphi technique. If you want to apply Delphi in your PSM as well, it's good, but it's more tedious. Yeah, some uh, master and PhD student, they use Delphi. Uh, Many undergraduate student, they use conventional survey for their thesis. So sample size have to be decided uh, for data collection. Yeah? How many? For example, you want to use interview. Yeah? It's qualitative. Yeah? Qualitative uh, survey, uh, and according to expert in methodology, research methodology, uh, groups of 12 or fewer converge on valid results. Such as sounders, you can, when you are writing chapter 3 for your proposal, of PSM, one of your reference book is Saunders. All Saunders is one of the book, and Saunders suggests if the respondent is homogeneous. For example, all the respondents are from uh, directors. You want to gush information to obtain information from directors. So 4 to 12 sample considered as valid for the results. So we have, for example, in UTM, we have so many research institute. We have more than 100 something research center in UTM. And I do not know how many research groups under this research center or under each faculties. There are several research groups. Our we call purposive sample. To answer our question, for example, in the survey, we need specific people answer. So this is called purposive sample. It's purposive sampling technique. So, for example, we need director or deputy director or chief of the research group, writer of research center, research institute to be the participants of our interview. So this is called a purposive sampling technique. However, not all will answer, will respond. So we can also use uh, voluntarily sampling technique, meaning that we contact all those directors, contact all those chief of the research group, the leader of the uh, university research center, and we identify those who willing to participate in the uh, interviews or expert opinion process or in Delphi techniques process. This is how we select samples. That's why groups of 12 or 4 to 12 as the minimum requirement for homogeneous. Homogeneous means the same levels or same area of expertise considered as valid. So here you can use purposive and also voluntarily sampling, and you should uh, get this information in your research methodology subject or your proposal. Stopping rule, multiple communication. The number of rounds used is trade-off of time and resources. Of course, more round meaning that you have a better results because yeah, the the filtration of the feedback make it better and better. However, it's a trade-off or sacrifice of time and resources as well. Yeah? That's why you have to have stopping rules. How many multiple communication? How many rounds? In Delphi, normally we have at least almost 4 rounds, the maximum. Why? Because of money, because of time as well. So we have to consider a stopping rule and use consensus as a criterion. We finalize as a consensus. Consensus meaning that a group decisions after uh, a few rounds or several rounds, and we finalize with consensus decision making, a group decision or group criterion made by the team. Uh, those experts include participate in the process. And number six, interactions. The greater the complexity, the more interaction is needed. If the problem or the technical attributes, the technical variables or dimensions and context get more complex, so we have to have more interaction, meaning that more rounds. Why? To gosh, to obtain feedback in specific question or specific area. So more interaction needed for more greater complexities in terms of dimensions, in terms of contextuals. That's why at the beginning or starting, we have to have the maps or networking of the dimension or contextual for our expert opinions study. Techniques, it can be individual mode or group mode. Uh, and in individual mode can be face to face or by telephone and online. And during the PKP, many students have to conduct their PSM via online communication. Uh, it depends on the situation. If it's safe for you to meet face to face, is better because face to face have its own advantages as well. Yeah. You can have body language. You can read the impressions or the expression or the body language, the posture, and so on. Yeah. During the face to face interview or face to face meeting, yeah, as we are having now online class, not much expression or impression or body language, the movement of head and hand and so on. Because it represents something. It's have note something. Just imagine. Sometimes you have the verbal, uh, but you can interpret something else. You have the verbal feedback, but having non-verbal expression, body language, and so on, you can have a better uh, understanding of the feedback. Uh, for example, yeah, it's good because till now I still not understand the head nod by Indians. They have a typical head nod, a slow head nod, a fast head nod, and some of course generally we can understand this meaning yes, yeah, yes, and this mean no. But for example, if you go to the mama restaurant, for example, sometimes they will have this kind of head nodding. You said you want to have, for example, roti prata or what, plain uh, chapati. They will have us. Okay, we want to have tetari, faster notes. So it's confusing. I do not know, but for me, it's sometimes non-verbal expression as well uh, can be um, misinterpreted or misunderstood. Um, Face-to-face meeting, you can see um, lecturer sitting in front of the class. Yeah, for example, some of them uh, they cannot stop moving their their hands, especially those from Middle East. They have and student as well. When they talk, they have to move their hand, and some of them they move not only hand but also their leg also moving. Uh, yeah, that's body posture. Explain something. Maybe nervous or too energetic. That's face to face, and that is a good book in library. Also has been translated to Malaysian about the body language or non-verbal. Uh, Maybe after this I can share to you. Understanding the body language is important in gauging the information. It's not verbal feedback, but non-verbal expression. Uh, I have a few of my students having interview with the daughter of the owner of the business. It seemed like a very uh, unfortunate for the group to have that interview because it seemed like the son of the owner of the business is not even interested in the business. So the feedback or the answer is, is like just um, just to answer the question, but not really uh, answering the questions. So that's the mistake of selecting the participants for the interview. Because in many cases of my other student, they have the owner of the business uh, so energetic, so enthusiast to share information because they establish the business. They start the business by themselves. Many of them, either Chinese or Malay, they are approachable and welcome to share information with students regarding the interview or survey. So when you are contacting for your PSM, so you have to select appropriate participants for the interview, especially interview, and also for the uh, survey. Okay? Otherwise, you will have uh, feedback which is not expected or unexpected feedback. Okay? Uh, in many cases, if you have, for example, like the owner of the business, because he know almost all the things on from the start up, or the challenge, the money matters, the manning, the manpower, the training, and also many other problems in the process of business or the business process. However, some other people may not suitable, such as I gave you example just now, the son of uh, the owner. Uh, he himself or she herself not interested in the business and not even concerned of the information or feedback given to others, especially the accuracy of the information. Okay? Uh, Face to face or online or telephone interview, it can be structured, focused, or non-structured. Structured meaning that you already prepared the questionnaire. You have the question that's structured. Focus group, only a specific uh, focus interview, uh, only a specific area or a specific expert use it as a participants. This is specific or we call it focus interview. Non-structured, you can gosh at any time. You can ask question and you can explore more, or you can gosh more, and you can interrupt as well. This is non-structured. For example, you are asking something about, uh, for example, about patenting, yeah, or about one of my students meant to do um, forecasting technique. So once the participant are replying about techniques, so you can directly ask how they implement it, what the advantages, is there any problem? So you can gauge or you can explore more, you can investigate more. This is non-structured. Yeah. Compared to structured, we have prepared the what you are going to ask, and sometimes we also provide uh, selective or selection or ranking for the participant or respondent to choose. This is structured. Uh, Another technique is group mode, and this is consists of several techniques using many experts in group mode. Also, we can use face-to-face with several experts at one time. Example, brainstorming, survey, and Delphi. Brainstorming, uh, also known as creative idea generations, without stopping others to brainstorm, provide ideas, generate ideas. So we select a few peoples, and then we have a few participants, and then brainstorm ideas or generate ideas. This is brainstorming, and most of you have done this exercise. When you are doing your group project, you have to brainstorm ideas, list the ideas, and then start select the idea or put weightage to the ideas. Identify which is critical or more important and which is less important based on the list. Survey, you can use questionnaire, that's conventional survey, or Delphi technique. Delphi is more specialized or specific survey. It consists of several rounds. Conventional survey like using questionnaire as many students use in PSM is only for one round. You send the questionnaire and get the feedback, and then you analyze the data. But Delphi, you get the data, feedback, and then you return and get another feedback, and it can be up to 4 rounds, as I did mention just now. Also, under group mode, you can use committees. Uh, Committees is a special dedicated task force. Like we have in our government, we have economics committee, a special task force. The Ministry for Economics Committee. It's a task force, a special task force to overcome specific problems or bottlenecks. And sometimes it's only a temporary, not as like other ministry or departments. It can be also simultaneous engineering. Like I mentioned just now to you, it can consist several representatives from different departments in the firms or in the company. We call it committees. And this task force has a special uh, can delegates to solve specific problems or tasks regarding engineering or technology or economics and so on. Seminar is much more open, which include more participants compared to committees, only a few representatives. Seminar is more open and more discussions in seminar. Next, conferences is open to the public. Yeah, normally representative from industry, representative from or people, not representative people from industry, people from universities. Yeah, uh, writers of, who wrote in articles in journals, in publication, they can submit in conference meeting, presenting their ideas. And also, normally, conference involve, we call it speech, special, special talk or speech from industry, opening speech from industrial representative from FMM or whoever from IEEE. So we have opening speech as a base of discussion of the conference, and also the round up or the conclusion made by the committee of the conference as the ending or summary conference. The other group mode, nominal group process. Call it nominal group process. Normally used at the beginning or starting of the expert opinion process. The purpose of nominal group process to define problem, like what you do in your proposal. You have problem definition, define dimension. You have the mapping or the models, the contextual, the networking. Maybe your problem in one area, but that particular area also have perspective from theory. That's why when you are proposing your PSM, you have to include scientific problems, or we call it academic problem, and also society problem. Normally, people or students uh, know about the society problem. For example, from my previous student, the application of cashless transaction in Malaysia, cashless transaction among the student. Yeah. Uh, okay. Uh, so one perspective is from the society or what's uh, happening in the phenomena among the students, what the problem, or so he have to list down to highlight the application or the implementation of the cashless, and also the benefits, the usefulness of the application of cashless. And another perspective or aspect to look is from the theoretical, from the conceptual, because they're already published in literature by previous uh, authors that publish in these topics. So this is called academic perspective or aspect or scientific perspective. And some of the theory already established, and some of them is still on development. And where you can see the, we call it theoretical gap or conceptual gaps, where you can fit your study into that academic or scientific study. So you can decide, for example, if there already exists a few models in that topic or in that particular study, so you can choose whether to adopt. Maybe after some time, there exists one best theory explaining the phenomena, such as many students use one theory in customer satisfaction, in marketing study. So he can adopt. Or maybe there exist several models. And in the case of students in UTM, you want to combine a few aspects from these several theory or model. You want to study from aspect number one, variable number one, and different variable from other theory as well. So you can adapt. The first strategy is to adopt, meaning that you take the model as it is and adapt, meaning that uh, you make uh, some modification in your new models. It's a combination of several variables or several models or theories into your new models. This is uh, task of one of the tasks of the nominal group. Uh, to understand or to define the problem, dimensions, context as well, because uh, you have the theory, but you want to apply at UTM. This theory maybe has been studied in different application in US or in Africa, so they have different contexts. For example, motivation uh, for Malaysian during this fasting Ramadan months. Yeah, maybe some Western theory not applicable in Malaysian context due to most of the participants or respondent for Malaysian case are Muslims, and Muslim they have a different perspective of, or we call it Islamic motivation perspective. So working is considered as ibadah, not only just praying, fasting, ibadah in Islam, but working also considered as ibadah. Helping others also as ibadah. Smiling as well considered as ibadah. So all ibadah have virtues which have merit, we call it, yeah, or sawab. We believe we have the return in the day of judgment. This even the small, like small goodness like smiling, having a nice talk, and so on, uh, have a contribution or merits, sawab, return in the day of all this will be calculated and have the returns in the day of judgment. That's all of this ibadah. So that the task of nominal group, this is internal in the team, in the company or in the firm. To identify options and question for conventional or Delphi survey. Yeah? For interview as well. This nominal group will have we call it interview protocol. As more or less like in your proposal, you have, if you want to do qualitative, you have to have interview protocol for qualitative interview, and for survey, you have to have the questionnaire for your survey. Protocol is a list of instruction. That's for structured and also for non-structured or semi-structured. Semi meaning that you can have structured and also non-structured in that interview. And also questionnaire, you can have structured, semi-structured, and non-structured. It's open-ended. You have the question and you have an open-ended question, meaning that you throw the question and let the respondent to answer the question. Uh, How long we have? Okay, a few more minutes. And a few steps in nominal group. Okay. Um, as I told you, nominal group is internal team. Normally in the team and also in the firms or company, the first step is silent. We call it nominal idea generation, meaning that everybody throw the idea. And then step number two, group round robin listing factors. We get the feedback from all the respondent or uh, participant in the nominal group and list the factors or the variables. As I told you, we define the dimension, the context, the networking of the problems, the perspective, different perspective from theoretical perspective, from academic, from society, the problem, the real problem in the firms, from engineering department, from money, finance department, from sourcing, from materials, and from procurement and logistic as well. Yeah. So we list or we map the problem or the variables. This is called independent variables. Soft dependent variables. Normally we want to solve one dependent variables, y equal to many other independent variables, x1, x2, x3, x4, and many others variables from different dimension and context. Next, discussion and clarification of listed factors or variables. In the same team, this nominal group have to discuss and clarify each of the problem. From financial, what's the limitation and so on, from logistic, from material, sourcing, procurement and so on. And then another step, silent or nominal, individual written voting on priorities. Okay, based on the list, individuals have to vote, to rate or to rank, maybe 1 to 5, 1 to 10, in terms of weightage of the or the or priorities of each variables or factors to consider. For example, in commercialization of technology, UTM, or productivity of R&D, innovation and invention in UTM. There are many factors, including researcher, one of the main factor. Also, idea, creativity, fund, another variable. Maybe if we want to vote on the priorities, we can. I do not know, but yeah, if after this, yeah, we can choose. Those who sit in the nominal, they can prioritize which one to focus, or which one to study more. which one to explore more, investigate more, so we can use the expert in this particular area. So we can use, for example, after the silent or nominal individual written voting, we can have discussion of voting results. And after the voting, we have the consensus. All of us agree based on the voting result. Let's say uh, researcher variable is the most important, or researcher factor that contribute to the productivity of innovation and invention in patenting and so on, a trademark. If researcher don't do the work, they don't have the product, they don't have the technology, they don't have publication, they don't have articles, they don't have uh, product to commercialize, to patent, or process to have a copyright or trademark. I guess that's important or critical factor. Researcher, and then we gosh more, explore more in the researcher, and then we identify one of the important factors in or based on the previous study when previous in literature, based on literature, most studies of academic productivity use motivation theory. So, we can finalize motivation theory is one of the important theory explaining researcher, academic researcher productivity in R&D and innovation. And there are many theories used in explaining researchers' motivations. So, which theory to use for nation? As I told you just now, most academic staff in Malaysia are Muslims. So we have to consider Islamic perspective of nation. Because many, as previous researcher has conducted using Western theory of motivation for studying productivity in Malaysia, research productivity in Malaysia. And some aspect Western theory cannot explain. People use the Western theory because maybe because of too long we have been colonized by Western, by British, by Dutch, and so on. So after the colonization, we have used for so long the Western theory and many writing using publication as well using Western theory, and that's the gap, the theoretical gap. So we can identify that the absence of using Islamic perspective of motivation in studying the motivation of researcher in research productivity, research output. So, finals, silent nominal individual writing voting. Last step is we have to make decision which one you have to finalize after identifying like you are doing in your proposal of SN, you have to identify the gap. What new knowledge to discover? Like I gave example just now. Islamic perspective motivation. Study, investigate the academic productivity in R&D, publication, innovation, and so on. That's an example. So once you decide, then you have to investigate more, of course. Yeah. More question. What's Islamic motivation? How it function in Muslims? How relevant or significant in terms of improving productivity, academic R&D, and innovation and publication and so on. It's not the final, but further process you have to do. Uh, you have to you have to investigate using externals. This is nominal group process, meaning that you are in the special task force in the firm or in the company. For further answer to the question as I posed just now of what Islamic motivations relate to productivity, of what how it functions in Muslims, how this Islamic motivation functions. You have to to explore more, to investigate more, and how it can be delayed or how it can significantly improve the productivity of academic Muslim academic researcher in the productivity of publication and innovation and so on. And there are a few more techniques that we can use to investigate more, to identify more, or to explore more, or to explain more. That's you have to describe in your proposal under the research design. Your research design, you have to choose exploratory research design or explanatory research design, which is sometimes also called descriptive, meaning that you have to explain something. Explanatory, you have to explain the phenomena. You have to understand the phenomena. That's exploratory. Or you want to test the theory. The theory is already available. You have the model from the previous study, and then you want to validate, and sometimes also called validating theory. That's we call it research design or strategy. Or uh, there is no theory at all. Yeah? So you want to come up with something totally new or called inductive design. Design. Deductive is you are testing or you are validating. You want to update. The theory is viable. You want to update with a new condition, new context or new dimension. So you want to have new information. So your PSM will discover new knowledge. Yeah? Uh, from exploratory, explanatory, or descriptive, also you will discover, you will contribute new knowledge. You explain something, or you will come up with something. That's why you, when you forming your objective, you have to put to identify, to investigate, and to understand, for example, to explore, to explain, to describe. That's for exploratory or explanatory design. And for testing, to validate, maybe to you can put evaluate. Yeah. But for evaluation, you have to include assessment criteria or assessment tools, and that's another level. It's not easy. I've read one of the suggestion of my student. She put to evaluate. So I commend she have to reconsider because she whether she want to evaluate or just want to uh, investigate. When you want to evaluate, you need to have tools for evaluation, or you at least you have criteria for measurements. What indicator? And that's another criteria for evaluation. If you want to evaluate something, you need for indicators measurement in your study. So I asked her to reconsider or to rethink. Uh, Much easier to investigate or to describe which techniques, advantage, constraints of applications in applying the techniques, uh, or the benefits having that techniques, for example, or any what we call it, uh, any special implementations, maybe not used by other company, but only used by this specific company, make it easier. So, or any tools, any software, any system, supporting system, and so on. So, this is investigate. Evaluate, of course, is much more difficult. It's another levels. You have to measure, you have to the indicator, measurement indicator. You need tools to evaluate. Okay, survey is one of the techniques using questionnaire. This is conventional. You can use questionnaire for your PSM. Quantitative, that you have to do regressions, so testing, so on. What we have done in last chapter or last uh, lecture note about trend analysis. You have to study the mean score, we call it uh, the, the descriptive and inferential statistic. Use statistic to analyze the survey data. That's conventional. You distribute, first you have to have the questionnaire, and also pilot study. consider pilot study. Also, in this gathering expert opinion, you have to try first with one expert, and then whether your questionnaire fully discover what you want to ask. Get comment from the in the pilot study. Also, in your questionnaire, if you want to use questionnaire, you have to have pilot study and get reply. Maybe you can ask lecturer answer for or supervisor for your questionnaire, and then get comments. Yeah, in terms of validity and reliability of your questionnaire. What to gush more or to include to explore more the variables, the testing of hypotheses, and so on. Okay, that's for survey and for interview as well. And that beside interview, there's another technique we call it storytelling. Yeah? That's a storytelling, also used in qualitative, which the participants share their experience. Yeah? We can see many researcher, Western researcher come staying in Sarawak, in Terengganu, studying the what we call it the indigenous, the lifestyle of the people, the Aborigine people, the origin, the orang asli, for example, the Bumiputra in Sarawak, the culture and so on. And that's one way of to acquire the information, the knowledge by storytelling. They meet people and ask people to share information, to tell the story. And also in technology, you can have users share the experience of learning by using. I did mention about learning by using last week. So based on experience, they can share the information. Next, Delphi techniques. Okay. Special form of survey to ensure participant anonymity. We put it as confidential of all the respondents and participants. Control feedback and iteration. We control the feedback and also the iteration, how many rounds, and statistical group response. We share back the feedback and get more feedback in other rounds. As I told you just now, normally up to 4 rounds. And uh, finalize using statistical application as well. We have to stop here. Inshallah, this coming Wednesday, I'm going to tell about Delphi techniques. And if you have any question regarding this opinion, you can ask using our group, our WhatsApp group, or next week, inshallah, during the meeting. Sorry, during the meeting next meeting on Wednesday. Okay, we have to stop now. Allah, see you again in Wednesday. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
And don't forget to write down your attendance in WhatsApp group.
Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.